10 brands the audio industry wants you to keep buying. 10 names that convinced a whole generation a logo equals good sound. Some spend more on celebrities than on engineering, and you've been paying for it. I've wasted hundreds on gear from this list. Most of it was in a drawer within a month. This is the video I wish someone showed me before I started spending. By the end, you'll see one product category where people drop the price of a used car on something that, by the laws of physics, shouldn't sound any different. Disagree? Tell me why in the comments. If this stops you from one bad purchase, hit subscribe. I break down real audio value every week, no brand sponsorships. Ground rule: almost all these brands have made good products. The only question is whether they're worth the money they charge and how they treat their customers. Your ears and your wallet decide. Let's go. Skullcandy. Walk into almost any big box electronics store and you will see a wall of them. Bright colors, skull logos, prices that look friendly. And for a teenager who wants headphones that match their backpack, fair enough. Skullcandy understood fashion before it understood frequency response, and it built an empire on looking cool on a shelf. The problem starts when you actually listen. The reputation that has followed this brand for years is muddy, bloated bass that smears over everything else, treble that either disappears or stabs at you, and build quality that has a habit of giving out right after the warranty does. Plenty of people have a Skullcandy graveyard in a drawer somewhere, a tangle of cracked headbands, and one earbud that stopped working. And that short lifespan is not an accident. It is the business model. A fashion brand wants you back in the store next year, buying the new color, the new collab, the new look. Gear that lasts a decade is bad for that kind of business. So you end up on a treadmill, replacing $40 headphones every single year. And over 5 years, you have quietly spent more than one good pair would have cost you up front. The part that stings most is the math. For the same $20 to $50, there are smaller brands quietly outperforming them, brands that spent the marketing money on drivers instead of skull logos. You are not buying sound here. You are buying a sticker on a shelf. Marshall. Consumer line. Real Marshall guitar amplifiers are legendary. Those towering black cabinets with the white script logo built the sound of rock and roll, and nobody is taking that away from them. The issue is the little Bluetooth speaker sitting on a coffee table with that exact same iconic logo on the front. What most buyers never stop to ask is who actually builds these things. Most of those consumer Marshall speakers and headphones are not made by the amp company at all. They are licensed products. The famous name rented out and stamped onto gear designed by another company entirely. You are buying nostalgia. You are buying the feeling of owning a piece of rock history that sits on your nightstand. And for that feeling, you pay a serious premium. A Marshall branded portable speaker often costs noticeably more than a competing speaker with the same or better sound, because a chunk of your money is rent on a logo. If you genuinely love the look, no judgment, it is a gorgeous object. But just understand that the gold control knobs are not making your music sound better. They are making the price tag bigger. Beats by Dre. You knew this one was coming. Beats is the brand that proved marketing beats engineering at the cash register every single time. Built on celebrity, built on music videos where every artist conveniently had a pair around their neck, built into one of the most recognizable products on the planet. For years, the knock on Beats was simple. Enormous, boomy bass that drowned everything else, mediocre detail, and a price that had very little to do with what was inside the plastic. The famous teardown culture around these headphones found more than once that the materials inside did not come close to justifying the sticker. You were paying for the swoosh equivalent on the side of your head. To be fair, since the company landed under one of the biggest tech firms in the world, the modern Beats lineup has genuinely improved. The newer models actually sound respectable, but the brand DNA is still the same trade. You are paying a fashion premium on top of the audio. And you can almost always get cleaner, more balanced sound for less if you are willing to wear a less famous logo. Here is the quiet kicker that nobody mentions at the register. Because Beats are a fashion item, they age like a fashion item. Last season's hot color drops in value the second the new one launches, and the resale market treats a 2-year-old pair like an old phone. Respected audiophile headphones hold their value for years because people actually want them for the sound. A trendy logo is a depreciating asset. A great driver is not. Apple, AirPods ecosystem. Apple makes excellent products in many categories. The AirPods line is convenient, the integration with iPhones is seamless, and for a lot of people, that convenience is worth real money. The problem is the long-term math and the repair reality. Recent AirPods Pro models have scored near zero on repairability. Once the battery dies or a driver fails, you are often looking at replacement rather than repair. The design prioritizes slimness and sealed construction over serviceability. You are not just buying earbuds. You are buying into a closed system that treats the product more like a consumable than a lasting tool. When the battery goes, the whole unit often goes with it. That is a very different philosophy from brands that still sell replacement pads, cables, and batteries years later. Convenience is real. So is the bill when the sealed unit eventually dies. Bang Olufsen. This is where hi-fi turns into interior decorating. Bang & Olufsen makes some of the most beautiful audio objects on earth. Sculptural aluminum speakers, telephones that belong in a museum, remote controls that feel like jewelry. Walk into a Bang & Olufsen showroom and it looks like an art gallery, because that is exactly the point. And this is where the watchdog alarm starts going off. You are paying art gallery prices for sound that, in blind listening, often will not beat gear, costing a fraction as much. The design is real, the craftsmanship is real, but a speaker that costs as much as a car is not delivering car-level performance. It is delivering supercar-level looks attached to good but not extraordinary sound. The markup lives in the aluminum and the brand, not in the listening. There is also the part that bites you years later. When a luxury design-led product fails, you cannot just take it to any repair shop. You are often locked into the brand's own service network, on the brand's own timeline, at the brand's own prices for proprietary parts. A device that costs a fortune to buy can cost a small fortune to keep alive. And that long-term bill almost never makes it into the showroom conversation. If you have the money and you want a stunning object in your living room, genuinely enjoy it. But do not confuse the price with the performance. You are buying a design statement that happens to play music, and there is nothing audiophile about paying triple for the styling. Sonos almost feels unfair to put here because the core idea is so good. Wireless speakers all over your house, all playing in sync, controlled from your phone. For a while, they were the kings of the smart home audio world, and the hardware genuinely sounds fine. The reason they make this list has nothing to do with the speakers and everything to do with how the company treats the people who already bought them. Sonos has built one of the most locked-in ecosystems in audio. Once you are in, and getting your music out of their walled garden is a chore by design. Then came the moments that broke trust. There was the infamous program a few years back that asked loyal customers to intentionally brick their own older working speakers in exchange for a discount, sending perfectly good electronics to the landfill. And more recently, a massive app overhaul that was so broken at launch, it left thousands of customers unable to use speakers they had already paid for a disaster the company spent a long time apologizing for. When you buy Sonos, you are not just buying a speaker. You are betting that a company with a shaky track record will keep your expensive gear working. That is a bet I would not make. Quick pause here. If you are getting value out of this, this is the part where most people forget to subscribe. Hit the button. It genuinely helps the channel stay independent, and it means you will be there for the next one before you spend $1 on audio. Bose. There is an old joke in audiophile circles that has followed this brand for 40 years. No highs, no lows, must be Bose. Harsh, maybe, but it survived this long for a reason. Bose built an empire on two genuinely brilliant things: noise canceling and marketing. Their early noise canceling headphones really were ahead of everyone, and their advertising made the name a household word. Credit where it is due. The trouble is the philosophy underneath. Bose has historically been famous for refusing to publish basic specifications, the kind of frequency and measurement data that lets you actually compare what you are buying. The reasoning the brand has long pushed is that specs do not matter, only how it sounds to you matters, which is a convenient thing to say when you would rather people not look too closely at the numbers. Then there is the processing. A lot of the Bose signature comes from heavy digital tuning that smooths everything into a pleasant, easy, slightly artificial sound. Great for a casual listener, frustrating for anyone who wants to hear what the artist actually recorded. Add proprietary connectors, proprietary accessories, and a long history of premium pricing, and you get a brand that is selling you comfort and convenience at a real audiophile premium. For a lot of people, that trade is fine. Just know you are paying top dollar for the logo and the noise canceling, not for the most accurate sound in the room. And because so much of the magic lives in sealed software and proprietary parts, when the battery dies or the firmware moves on, you often cannot fix it, you replace it. Compare that to a classic pair of wired headphones you can repad and recable for the next 20 years. One approach treats your gear like a subscription. The other treats it like something you own. Monster. Now we enter the cable wars, and this is where the consumer watchdog gloves come off. Monster is the brand that, more than any other, taught a generation of shoppers that an expensive cable makes your gear sound better. Walk up to a checkout counter with a new TV or receiver, and there it is. A thick, fancy, gold-plated Monster cable for $50, $80, sometimes over $100, positioned right next to a job that a $5 cable does identically. The engineering reality is pretty simple. For a standard digital connection at normal household lengths, the signal either arrives perfectly or it does not. A digital cable is not making your picture richer or your audio warmer. The expensive packaging, the gold connectors, the dramatic marketing language about purity and signal at typical living room distances, none of it changes what comes out the other end in any way your eyes or ears can detect. Monster also earned a reputation over the years for aggressively going after other companies over the word monster itself, which tells you a lot about where the energy went. The cable on the inside is fine, the price on the outside is the scam. And if you think mass market cables are a racket, wait until you see what the high end does with the exact same idea. AudioQuest. If Monster is the cable racket for everyday shoppers, AudioQuest is the cable racket dressed in a tuxedo. And this is the single most debated entry on this list, the one that will absolutely fill the comments. AudioQuest sells cables to the high-end audiophile world, and the prices are difficult to believe until you see them. We are talking about speaker cables, power cables, and yes, network cables that can cost hundreds, thousands, and in the flagship cases, more than a brand new car. There are AudioQuest power cords priced higher than the entire stereo system most people will ever own. The justification is a wall of exotic sounding language. Special metals, special geometry, special directionality, claims that this cable will reveal detail and depth that a normal one hides. The blunt counterpoint from the engineering side is brutal. For carrying electricity from your wall to your amp or digital data between two boxes, a $1,000 cable and a well-made $20 one do the same job. The famous example that broke the internet years ago was a premium Ethernet cable sold for hundreds of dollars to make your digital music sound better when the data it carries is identical ones and zeros that either arrive or not. Now, plenty of people will tell you they hear a difference and they believe it completely. I am not calling anyone a liar. But when the difference vanishes, the moment you cannot see which cable is plugged in, that tells you what you are really paying for. You are paying for the story. And there is no more expensive story in all of hi-fi than the one wrapped around a fancy cable. So that is the wall of shame. 10 brands or product lines cashing in on logos, marketing, packaging, and stories. It would be easy to walk away from this thinking good audio just costs a fortune and the whole hobby is a trap. It is not. Because here are 3 brands doing the exact opposite, and they are the reason this hobby is actually worth getting into. Worth it one, Sennheiser. If there is one brand that audiophiles point newcomers toward, it is this one. Sennheiser has spent decades building a reputation on a simple idea: accurate sound at a price that makes sense. The legendary open back headphones in their lineup, the ones that have dominated value recommendations for years, cost a couple hundred, and embarrass headphones priced many times higher. People buy a pair in their 20s and are still happily using them a decade later. That is the whole pitch. You pay for the drivers, the tuning, and the comfort. Not for a celebrity or a fashion moment. The sound is honest, the build lasts. And you can usually replace the ear pads and cables instead of throwing the whole thing away. In a list full of brands selling you a feeling, Sennheiser sells you the actual thing. And it is not just hobbyists saying so. Walk into recording studios, mixing rooms, and broadcast booths around the world and you will find Sennheiser gear being used to make the music and the movies you love, because professionals need to hear exactly what is there, not a flattering version of it. When the people whose job depends on accurate sound reach for a brand again and again, that is the endorsement that actually counts. Worth every dollar, worth it too. Schiit Audio. Funny name. Serious gear, and one of the most refreshingly honest companies in this entire video. This small American outfit builds headphone amplifiers and digital to analog converters, the little boxes that actually power and feed your headphones. And it does the opposite of everything we have criticized so far. The prices are low and clearly explained. The products are built in the United States and famous for lasting. And the part that matters most for a watchdog is this. A lot of their gear is designed to be upgraded and repaired rather than replaced. You can buy an entry-level stack of theirs for around the price of a single overpriced cable from earlier in this list, and it will run your headphones beautifully for years. No mystic language, no $1,000 nonsense, just measured performance for an honest price. They also do the opposite of the Bose move. Instead of hiding the numbers and telling you that specs do not matter, they publish their measurements and let you compare. They write long, blunt, almost nerdy explanations of how their products work and why they price them the way they did. When a company is that transparent about what is inside the box, it is usually because there is nothing to hide. This is what the industry is supposed to look like. Worth it. 3. Elac. And to round it out, speakers. Because everything so far has been about what goes on your head or in a cable. Elac, working with one of the most respected speaker designers in the business, built a line of budget bookshelf speakers that genuinely shocked the audiophile world. The idea was simple and a little rebellious. Take real engineering knowledge and pour it into a speaker that costs as little as possible. The result is a pair of speakers you can buy for a couple hundred that will outperform flashier, more expensive boxes from brands you've actually heard of. No fancy aluminum, no art gallery markup, just clean, balanced sound that punches way above its price. Pair them with that honest little amplifier we just talked about, and you have a real hi-fi system for less than the cost of a single luxury power cable from #1 on our avoid list. Sit with that comparison for a second, because it is the whole point of this video in one sentence. The same money that buys you one piece of jewelry-grade aluminum from a luxury brand or one cable wrapped in a good story can instead buy you an entire setup that genuinely sounds better, not flashier, better. That is the trade the industry does not want a first-time buyer to understand. Because once you do, the logos stop working on you. So that is the map. 10 brands or product categories, betting that you will keep paying for logos, processing, packaging, and stories. And 3 brands betting that if they just build something good and price it fairly, you will figure out the difference. The audio industry has spent decades training people to believe that the more you spend, the better you hear. The brands worth your money quietly prove that is a lie. Good sound has never been about the size of the price tag. It is about where the money actually went. If this saved you from one expensive mistake, do me one favor and subscribe. Because next week I am breaking down the exact starter system I would build today for under $500. Every component, no fluff, no sponsors. It is the video I wish I had before I wasted all that money. I will see you in that one.